October 1979 and allowed maximum amounts of relocation east or west, 70 feet, 150 feet without heavy obstruction. The route was to be built well after the lake bed was dredged and pilings were driven to form the base of the rig. In June 1980, Wilson Drilling Corporation and 1980 began installing down rigs at Wilson. This installation was called number one. The crew was scheduled to work well with a 12-hour shift, followed by 24 hours rest period on land. This was overseen by a tool pusher who lived and worked on the rig for a 4-day on-off rota. Multiple crews manned the rig on their 12-hour shifts, forming 24 hours of constant drilling. This was overseen by a Wilson supervisor, who was also then overseen by a Texaco foreman who would do 7 days on and 7 days off. There were 2 of them, and they made all the most important decisions. By the 18th of November, the well was nearly ready to be drilled. A 16-inch conductor pipe had been driven into the lake bed the day before. Drilling begins. Day 1 of drilling began at 6 p.m. on the 18th of November and was to run for 12 hours at 6 a.m. on the 19th. Initially, all went well in the first shift. 61 feet per hour was drilled for the first 10.5 hours. At a depth of just short of 500 feet, a survey was made, and it was found their work was within 1 degree of being perfectly vertical. By the next shift, begun at 1800 hours on the 19th of November, the hole was at around 900 feet deep. With both mud pumps working, progress seemed pretty good, but not for long. Pump number 1's clutch burnt out, necessitating drilling operation to slow right down. At around 1090 feet, another survey was undertaken, and it was found to be 0.5 degrees off vertical. 1248 feet, the rig would encounter another problem. The drill had become stuck. Just before 5 a.m., the Texaco drill foreman was woken up and the issue with the drill was reported to him. The crew tried to rotate, lift and drop the drill, but no movement was seen. The foreman told the crew to increase the thickness of the mud. As a side note, drilling mud helps with drilling efforts and also helps remove the drilled material from the hull. By now, both pumps were working again, and they pumped the thicker mud, which then increased the pressure in the hull. The load indicator started to show a heavier weight than the 78,000 pounds on the drill bit. It climbed to 240,000 pounds. The wire on the drill bit was slackened off, dropping it to a much more acceptable 40,000 pounds. This relief was short-lived as the weight climbed again to over 100,000 pounds. The next crew took over at 5:45. Not long after, a rather worrying sound rumbled from the rig. Much to the confusion of the crew, the weight of the drill bit rose further to a massive 400,000 pounds, aka the weight of donuts I would like to eat in one go. The confusion would move over to worry as the rig began to tilt. Texaco and the drill company, Wilson's, were notified of the now bizarre situation. Both companies decided on an attempt to level the rig. Apparently, it is not uncommon for the pilings to slip, thus making a platform uneven. The rig continued to lean. Seeing this as definitely not normal, the foreman ordered all crew to abandon the platform. The crew cut loose the barges that were moored to the rig in an effort to try and save the equipment aboard. At roughly 7:25 in the morning, the rig overturned and began to sink. Eyewitnesses were shocked to see the rig completely disappear below the waterline, something that shouldn't have even been possible, as the lake at its deepest point was only around 12 feet. Well, where do you think it might have gone? A mine inundation. Whilst the leaning rig was being abandoned, miners at the Crystal Salt Mine were just beginning their shift. Obviously, they didn't know about the impending disaster that would interfere with their plans for the day. 48 workers were on site, and leading up to 8 a.m, they were spreading out amongst the various levels of the mine. On the 1,300-foot level, worker Julian Gaddison was collecting electrical equipment. He noticed something that no one in a mine wants to see. A 2-foot high torrent of water approaching him. He raised the alarm and evacuation of the mine began, with men being hoisted to the surface in a lift. Wilfred Johnson, on the 1,500-foot level, went up to the 1,300-foot level to investigate the water, was soon forced to escape by the ever-increasing deluge. The evacuation went pretty smoothly, with one of the foremen using a pickup truck to pick up workers in the deeper, more extreme regions of the mine. By 9 o'clock in the morning, everyone was clear. It was an absolute miracle that no one in the mine or the rig lost their lives. Although no one was lost, a whole lake was having a go at trying to disappear though. A quarter-mile wide whirlpool formed over the rough location where the rig was. It sucked a tugboat, a string of barges, and 2 Texaco oil rigs into the abyss of water. 2 boaters on the lake managed to power their boats to shore, just showing again the sheer luck of everyone involved. Over the next 3 hours, the entire lake disappeared into the mine. Hugely, the lake fed the Canberra Canal to the Vermilion Bay, eventually heading out to the Gulf of Mexico. But during the disaster, the flow was reversed, taking water from the sea and filling back into the lake. And this went on for several days. The air shafts became a mud cannon as water pushed out all the air from the mine, showering the surrounding area with muddy water. Nearby residents were evacuated, and personnel from the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office, the Louisiana State Police, the Vermilion Parish Sheriff's Office, the Canberra Police, and the State Wildlife and Fisheries Department was drafted in to help with a growing amount of people becoming displaced. Eventually the water pressure would equalise, and of the 11 barges that had disappeared into the whirlpool, 7 returned to the surface. As an interesting side effect, the salt content of the lake actually increased, but not from the mine, but actually the backfilling of seawater from the Gulf. This would also change the local ecosystem. Aftermath. Although no one died, 3 dogs were reported killed, but the big question was, how did a well-established mine get breached by a pretty well-established drilling company? Clearly something went wrong. We can likely rule out coincidence, as the drill